After a brief moment of contemplation, Han Li decided to fly back toward the Immortal Palace instead of continuing to flee. He didn't want to waste the limited time that he had, and he wanted to confirm some things. Firstly, he wanted to see if he could figure out exactly how the Infernal Frost Immortal Palace had met its demise. After all, he was still trapped in the ruins of the Infernal Frost Immortal Palace and didn't know how to get out. Secondly, he wanted to find out why the Reincarnation Palace had attacked the Immortal Palace. At the moment, he was a reincarnation disciple, so knowing more about the Reincarnation Palace certainly couldn't hurt. Thirdly, he wanted to observe all of these spirit domains at a closer proximity. He had actually already come into contact with a spirit domain back in the spirit realm, but that had only been a profound heavenly spirit domain unleashed by Baohua, which was really only just a faux spirit domain unleashed with the help of a profound heavenly treasure. 1. After arriving in the immortal realm, Han Li had spent some time searching for information pertaining to spirit domains, but opportunities to personally witness spirit domains had proven to be very few and far in between, so he naturally didn't want to pass up this prime opportunity. This nascent soul was quite powerful to begin with, and following the injection of Han Li's spiritual sense, its speed had been enhanced by several-fold, so it didn't take long before Han Li arrived near the battlefield. At this point, a decent number of the Time Dao runes on his mantra Treasured Axis had already faded. Not far in front of him was an enormous yellow spherical light barrier, and even without entering it, Han Li could already sense a burst of tremendous Earth attribute energy fluctuations emanating from it. Through the light barrier, Han Li could clearly see that all of the trees and buildings in the area encompassed within the light barrier had been crushed under some type of tremendous force. He could also just barely make out some cultivators in the extremely far distance, and all of them were doing everything in their power to oppose this force. But it was clear that they were fighting a losing battle, and they were so severely restricted that they could only fly at a very slow pace, several dozen feet above the ground. The other side of this light barrier overlapped with a silver spirit domain, within which were countless streaks of bright sword chi that were severely ravaging the space encompassed within the spirit domain. Further away in the distance, there were spirit domains that were even larger and brighter, and each of them had their own unique properties. Han Li was completely flabbergasted by what he was seeing, and he was wondering if he should venture into the spirit domain directly before him when he heard a thunderous roar ring out from extremely far away. A burst of formidable sound waves pierced straight into his mind without encountering any resistance, and it was like a giant blade threatening to cleave his soul apart. Hanel's consciousness was instantly plunged into a state of extreme turbulence and disarray, and he felt as if his spiritual sense were about to fall apart, causing him to involuntarily fall out of the sky. However, right at this moment, his spirit refinement technique was activated on its own, and a layer of black light instantly spread over his consciousness to protect it. In the instant before Han Li plummeted into the ground, his spiritual sense was finally stabilized again, and a stunned look appeared on his face as he hurriedly flew upward again to regain his elevation. He turned to the direction where the roar had come from to find that most of the spirit domains there had already been broken. It was unclear whether they had been directly broken by that roar, or if the spirit sense of the cultivators who had unleashed those spirit domains had been destroyed, thereby resulting in the disintegration of their spirit domains. After a brief moment of hesitation, Han Li turned back to the same direction in which he had previously been fleeing and flew away even faster than before. The power imbued within that roar wasn't unfamiliar to Han Li. It was the power of the spirit refinement technique, and it was similar in nature to the spirit stun thorn, but enhanced by sheer orders of magnitude. If Han Li were to remain on this battlefield, he wasn't sure if he would be able to withstand another one of those attacks, or perhaps an even more formidable spiritual attack, and that was why he decided to flee again. Even after fleeing for close to 100,000 kilometers, Han Li still displayed no intention of stopping. And only after he had reached the sea did he finally slow down slightly. He swept his gaze across the surrounding area to find that on the surface of the sea, not far away, was a long and slender island, shaped like a willow leaf. Vegetation on the island was very sparse, and the ground was littered with exposed gray rocks. Isn't this the island inhabited by the cold crystal race? Is this the Black Wind Island? Somehow, it seemed that he had arrived in the Black Wind Sea. Right at this moment, he was struck by another burst of sensory overload, and fragments of Jinhai's memories began to surface once again. However, the memories this time had nothing to do with the ongoing battle. Instead, they pertained to a treasure map. Prior to the commencement of this battle, Jinhai seemed to have made an arrangement with someone to leave the Boundless Sword Sect to travel to another immortal region in search of treasures, but he never got the chance to make good on that promise. The map appeared to lead to quite a remarkable treasure, as evidenced by the deep regret and disappointment from Jinhai attached to this memory. Perhaps that was why this memory had sprung up in Han Li's mind. Only then did it occur to Han Li to examine the contents of Jinhai's storage bracelet, and in doing so, he discovered that the storage bracelet was filled with a vast abundance of resources, including a huge number of immortal origin stones, as well as many treasures, pills, and ancient scriptures. Many of those treasures and pills were unrecognizable to Han Li, but he was familiar with what those ancient scriptures were. Jinhai's memories indicated that he treasured these ancient scriptures as much as his own life, and they contained the sword techniques and sword arrays of the Boundless Sword Sect. If it weren't for the fact that his time in this state was very limited, Han Li would have definitely decided to study these scriptures. After all, the Boundless Sword Sect was vastly renowned as one of the most brilliant sword sects in history, so which sword cultivator wouldn't want to study its sword techniques? Among the items in the storage bracelet, Han Li noticed a strange silken handkerchief, which, according to Jinhai's memories, was supposed to hold the treasure map. The handkerchief was cool to the touch, and there was rainbow light flashing over its surface, indicating that it was no ordinary handkerchief. However, as he attempted to carefully observe the patterns on the handkerchief, he discovered that he wasn't able to see anything clearly, so he was naturally unable to identify the map on it. In order to conduct a better examination, Han Li called upon his Eye of Truth, and a beam of golden light shone down onto the handkerchief from the eye. However, with his usage of the Eye of Truth, the rate at which the Time Dao runes on his mantra-treasured axis were fading was accelerated, and he only had fewer than 20 active ones left. The rainbow light on the surface of the handkerchief rippled before spreading outward from the center, and a very complex map soon appeared on the handkerchief. Han Li scrutinized the map intently, carefully looking over every single detail in order to commit everything to memory. After that, he took a glance at his mantra-treasured axis, on which only several Time Dao runes remained lit, and he stowed the map back into his storage bracelet before plunging down into the sea near the White Island as quickly as he could, plummeting into the water like a meteorite. He descended rapidly through the water, leaving a white line in his wake as he hurtled directly toward the seabed. Meanwhile, the Time Dao runes on the mantra-treasured axis, hovering above him, continued to fade one after the other. With only 5 Time Dao runes left, Han Li had already plunged over 10,000 feet into the sea, and he broke through the 100,000 feet mark with only 3 Time Dao runes left. Finally, Han Li reached the seabed, then pierced a hand straight into the seabed's rocky surface to create a deep hole. After that, he tossed the storage bracelet into the hole, then lifted a huge rock before placing it over the hole. Before Han Li had a chance to verify whether the opening of the hole had been properly sealed, the final Time Dao rune was snuffed out, and a vortex abruptly appeared right next to him. Another burst of sharp pain speared through his mind, following which his spiritual sense returned to his body. Han Li looked on as the wall of light before him gradually faded, and he continued to recollect what he had just witnessed with a contemplative look on his face. Only after some time had passed did he sweep a sleeve through the air, and all three of his time law threads emerged, having been reduced to a dull and lusterless state, and they returned to his mantra, treasured axis at his behest. Immediately thereafter, the mantra treasured axis also vanished into his body. Hanli rose to his feet before sweeping a sleeve through the air once again, and a new azure robe appeared over his boy. He then summoned a white jade hairpin and briefly arranged his own hair before securing it with his hairpin. Right at this moment, Taoist Shi flew over from afar before landing beside him. "Congratulations on making such an important breakthrough, fellow Taoist Han," Taoist Shi said as it cupped its fist in a salute. "Thank you for keeping a lookout for me all this time, Brother Xie," Hanli replied with a smile. "There's no need to thank me. My fate is directly intertwined with yours. Now that you've reached the golden immortal stage, I'm sure your mantra-treasured axis will have made a full recovery. Should we go and take another look at that dream concealment restriction?" Taoist Shi suggested. Hanli smiled as he replied, "My thoughts exactly." However, his voice then abruptly cut off as he recalled that all of the time Tao runes on his mantra-treasured axis had been snuffed out again. "Is there something wrong?" Taoist Shi asked. A wry smile appeared on Hanli's face, but he shook his head as he replied, "No, let's go take a look at the restriction." Thus, the two of them arrived in the abandoned garden once again, and everything remained much the same compared with during their last visit. Hanli strode over the stone platform and carefully examined it with his spiritual sense. Immediately thereafter, his mantra-treasured axis appeared behind him, and sure enough, all of the time Tao runes on its surface were dull and devoid of luster. He made a hand seal with both hands, and a beam of golden light shot out of the Eye of Truth at the center of the axis before striking the center of the stone platform. A layer of light emerged over the stone platform, but it quickly faded, and nothing else happened aside from that. "I guess I shouldn't be surprised," Hanli murmured to himself with a faint sigh. A thought then occurred to him, and his three-time law threads flew out of his mantra-treasured axis at his behest, before flying straight into the stone platform. All of a sudden, the entire stone platform began to glow with dazzling golden radiance, and the golden light instantly spread in all directions like a complex system of tree branches, extending all the way to beyond the forest in which the stone platform was situated. 1. For more information on Baohua, please refer to /wiki/Baohua.